Received the news that President Trump has cancelled his state visit to Denmark on the 2nd and 3rd September.
That is the Danish Prime Minister announcing that Donald Trump will not be visiting Denmark. Now, the Queen of Denmark had invited Donald Trump and his wife Melania, but he has decided that he's no longer going to attend. Trump called off the September 2nd to the 3rd visit after Frederiksen called, that's the Prime Minister, called his idea of the United States purchasing Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory rich in natural resources, absurd. Now that word, absurd, also triggered our special little snowflake. Take a look.
Now, Denmark, I looked forward to going, but I thought that the Prime Minister's statement that it was absurd, it was an absurd idea, it was nasty. I thought it was an inappropriate statement. All she had to do is say, no, we wouldn't be interested. I thought it was a very not nice way of saying something. They could have told me no. All they had to do is say, no, we'd rather not do that, or we'd rather not talk about it. Don't say what an absurd idea that is. She said absurd. That's not the right word to use, absurd. The Prime Minister used a terrible word when describing something that we've been talking about for years with our country. You don't talk to the United States that way, at least under me. And I thought it was not a nice statement, the way she blew me off.
This child's the president of the United States.
It's absurd.
You don't use a word like that, absurd. You don't, well, that's true, but.
He can't handle women rejecting him.
Oh God, he's so pathetic.
It's absurd.
You're so, look, and if you're a follower of his, you're so pathetic. This little boy who gets triggered anytime a woman says no, and he's like, it's absurd. You can't use a very not nice word. He literally said, that's a very not nice word.
He tells it like it is, Cenk.
Okay, and so we canceled a diplomatic trip to Denmark because the president's feelings were hurt. I thought the facts didn't care about your feelings.
So right before the Prime Minister announced that he will not be showing up, there were other politicians, and the former Danish Premier Lars Løkke Rasmussen said the following of Donald Trump wanting to buy Greenland: "It must be an April Fool's Day joke." Right? So everyone's
that's a very not nice sentence. Very not nice. I don't like that. My feelings have been hurt. I'm not going to go to Denmark. I'm going to go to a safe space.
So here's my question before we go on to other politicians clowning Trump. Now that Denmark really understands how unhinged Trump is, if God forbid he gets reelected, will they be more open to American refugees? Because it's really hard to go to Denmark and get accepted there. They have very strict immigration laws.
Well, Greenland, we now found out, only has 56,000 people on it, and because of climate change, they've got a lot of new land that's opened up.
It's so cold there, though. I know it's cold in Denmark too.
Well, now there's raging fires, so at least in the summer it's hot. So anyway,
disaster.
Seriously, that's super depressing for the planet.
Yes. So let me give you some more comments. Now, even right-wing politicians in Denmark are clowning Trump, which I find fascinating. So Søren Espersen, who is from the Danish People's Party, he's the leader of that party, and again, this is a right-wing group, says Trump's cancellation is very, very shocking when it is about a very close ally and a good friend. So even right-wingers in other countries are realizing this guy is crazy, unhinged, has no idea what he's doing. I mean, to cancel a trip because you can't have your way with Greenland is something that he referred to as a real estate deal. I mean, it's insulting to the people who live in Greenland, to say the least. And like, with what money, Trump?
Okay, so yeah, well, he'll just add to the deficit like he always does. If you notice, he actually said, he did not in that clip, but in talking about this overall, he said, now, the Danish people are a very good people. I just didn't like the comment that their leader made. Now, why does he say that? They're Northern Europeans, so they're good people, not like the people in the Southern Hemisphere, okay? And so he had to throw that in there, okay? And by the way, it's not like it's Russia or anything, one of his closest allies. Like, he's had a lot of issues with Northern Europe politically. And normally when he has issues politically with people, he insults them to no end. But he's like, no, don't get me wrong. Those very white people up in Northern Europe are fantastic people. I just don't like the meany words that their leader used against me.
So look, aside from the back and forth and the high school drama that we experience with Trump on a regular basis, there are ramifications, because think about how he's alienated so many of our allies through a nonsensical trade war that isn't really well thought out, through antagonizing our NATO allies. And then in this case, I mean, he has gone after Denmark in the past. He believes that Denmark should contribute more to NATO. But in this case, you have politicians in the country saying, we can't really rely on the United States. We probably shouldn't even really deal with them right now and focus on our European allies instead. In fact, let me give you the exact statement. This is from Morten Østergaard. He is the leader of the Social Liberal Party, and he says it shows why we now, more than ever, should consider fellow European Union countries as our closest allies. The man is unpredictable. Reality surpasses imagination.
That's true. So two things about that. Guys, it's not just about Trump. When Trump does this, it affects America for decades on end, because other countries rightfully think, okay, maybe now Elizabeth Warren is president and we have a stable person to deal with as we did under Obama, et cetera, right? But how do we know you're not gonna elect another moron like Trump soon? Because the American people apparently are comfortable electing people who are incredibly stupid. And so it's a democracy, and on any given year, a Republican can win. And the last two Republicans have blasted the world. George W. Bush created anarchy and chaos in the Middle East with that disastrous Iraq war, and then created a global recession. I mean, and was also incredibly stupid. Don't forget how dumb George Bush was. I read 3 Shakespeare and a Camus. Right? So you forget how dumb Bush was because this guy overshadows him. He's like an eclipse in stupidity, right? And it just eclipses everything else and blocks out the sun with it, how unintelligent he is. Which leads me to my second point. Within 24 hours, he cancels a diplomatic trip to Denmark because they wouldn't sell Greenland to him and called him a very not nice word. And he calls himself the King of Israel and the second coming of God. And the cabinet has not assembled for discussion of the 25th Amendment?
Oh, you think the cabinet's gonna do that, Cenk? He's surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men.
Yeah, so last night I came to a realization that it's not just that Trump is both hideous and preposterously stupid. It's that the media is gaslighting us by not saying it. They're having a debate over it. So it's almost like an abusive partner.
Yes.
Saying like, hey, no, you're the one who took the crazy pill.
No.
I see a guy who might be perfectly sane.
Oh my God, you're so right. It feels like you're in a relationship with a partner who's cheating on you and you know it, right? You see the lipstick on the collar and you're like, but you have lipstick on the collar, right? But then there's the third party who's supposed to be like the arbiter of the truth. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What lipstick?
Yeah, and they're like, let's have a debate over the lipstick.
Right.
And you're like, it's right there.
It's
the
crazy.
guy called himself the second coming of God. And media's like, let's have a debate. Well, it's gaslighting the whole country. That's why people are so frustrated. It's not just that Trump's a bad guy. It's that they won't say the emperor has no clothes. The emperor has no mind. What kind of a lunatic, when he's president, calls himself the King of Israel? I mean, if anybody else had done that, everyone would agree. If Obama had done it, Republicans and Democrats would both say, no way. Imagine for a second if Bernie Sanders did it. Everyone in media would immediately say, he must get out of the race. He must get out. Who says Bernie Sanders said he's the second coming of God. Can you imagine? And he would be tarred and feathered and taken out of town. But when it's Trump, I don't know. He said, she said, let's have a debate about it. You're the crazy one if you think that he's mentally unstable.
If you know for sure. Right?
Yes, no, but I do know for sure. Someone who says that there's second coming of God and cancels a trip to Denmark because they wouldn't sell me Greenland and they called me a naughty word. That's a lunatic. That's a mentally unstable person. And if you don't say so, you're not objective. You're doing political correctness to cover for the insanity of the Republican Party.
Yeah, you have your blinders on and they're not even Peaky Blinders. I don't know where that came from.
I don't know either, but it was kind of fun.
Right?